Good morning. I think I'm broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook. It's great to see you this morning. We are in a very special time of year. I'm going to get a little religious specifically. It's a special time of year because we're building up to the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what this time of year means for Jewish people. And really it's about the mental work, or really, if you get down to it, it's the heart work or the soul work that we're supposed to be doing in preparation for this time of year. Now, one of the things that we understand as calendar watchers is the idea that the new year creates new opportunities. In the secular calendar, there's an idea that we make New Year's resolutions, that we want the new year to be different than the year before, and we make commitments to go to the gym or to invest our money more carefully, to lose weight, or to improve our relationships with the people in our lives that are strained, or to spend more time relaxing or going to the beach. Whatever that resolution is, it is an idea that we want to improve ourselves. We want to change our lives in some way. And in Judaism, it's no different. In fact, I would argue that there's probably a crossover from the sort of Judeo-Christian perspective that the new year is an opportunity to kind of review our soul, and the secular idea that it's an opportunity to renew these aspects of our lives. When we talk about the new year, Jewishly, it is exactly that. There's this idea in Hebrew called heshbon haNefesh, the accounting of our soul, where we take a close look at who we are, at what we have been for the past year, what we've done, what we've accomplished, the mistakes we've made, and we think about how do we want it to be different in the coming year. And there's a fairly systematic way to do it. On Yom Kippur in particular, which is the Day of Atonement, there are a series of prayers that we say intended to help us with this accounting. If people have been through 12-step programs and done the fourth step, you may understand that there are different ways to do the fourth step. The idea is it's a personal inventory where we really analyze what we've done in our lives and how that has impacted other people and how it has impacted ourselves. And there are workbooks that people doing this kind of inventory can use that asks them a series of questions to really examine what their lives have been like up until this point. And then that inventory actually becomes kind of material for a series of a segment of the 12 steps that helps people come to terms with, that it helps people resolve the unresolved aspects of their lives. The idea being that the things that are unresolved are what cause the guilt, and even worse, the shame that lead people to abuse substances or experiences, or whatever the addiction would be. And that the whole idea, not to go off on the side track of what addiction is about, but it is about a kind of numbing or escaping from those things that are most painful. And these steps within the 12 steps, starting with the inventory, what I'm calling the accounting of the soul, or in Hebrew again, the heshbon haNefesh, is a way to resolve those things that are sort of the pricks of conscience, the things that spark our pain, our internal pain, our negative self-reflection, and our self-doubt and our self-criticism, that are all things that we want to try and escape if we can. In Judaism, these questions interestingly come on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, and I want to be clear about that. The interesting thing is that Rosh Hashanah, the start of the new year, which is coming up on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, is not the time for us to do that atoning work, but the month that precedes it, the month of Elul, which is what we're in right now, is the month when we're supposed to be doing that. In fact, during this specific time of year, particularly about a week or so before Rosh Hashanah, there are religious people who are getting up extra early, and they're saying a series of prayers which are called slichot prayers, literally the excuse me prayers. In Israel, if you get on a bus and you happen to bump somebody as you're moving to the back of the bus, you say politely slicha, excuse me. Or if you want someone's attention, if you want to ask a waitress for the menu, you say, the first thing you might say in in English we would say, excuse me, can you bring a menu? In Hebrew it's no different, slicha, you would ask, before to open up the conversation. So it's these excuse me prayers that people are saying. Well, that raises the question of what are we excusing, what do we need excuse for? And that's the accounting of the soul. But here's where things, I think, get really powerful. There is this idea that we can't really do this accounting of the soul until we really break our hearts open, until we really get to a place where we are metaphorically at our lowest understanding of ourselves, where we really feel the pain, or at least the discomfort of what it is that we've not achieved, where we've missed the mark in the past year, what we've attempted but didn't follow through on, or didn't quite get over the goal line, what we wanted to accomplish. There's this idea that the repentance, the atoning for, the owning in another is language I would use in my coaching practice of the mistakes that we made, can only happen from a broken heart. That it's it's similar to the idea that people, again, I'm going to go back to 12-step structure to talk about it. An addict has to hit bottom before he or she is really committed to ending the addiction. They really have to hit their lowest point. And that lowest point is a different, it's a different place for each person. For some people, it can be somewhat superficial, where they realize, maybe they were in a near-death car accident. They nearly, they collided with another car, and fortunately nobody was injured, and they weren't injured. And they realize and they'd been driving inebriated, and they realize what their drinking can cause. For other people, it may be the horrible tragedy where they actually do cause a fatality or an injury, or it could be the loss of their houses or their marriages or their relationships with their children. All of these are different levels of what they call of bottom. What those of you who've been in the 12-step rooms understand. In Judaism, the idea is similar, that we kind of have to hit an emotional bottom before we can really change, before we can really start to put ourselves back together. This idea that only from a broken heart can we start to rebuild ourselves better. And Judaism has a number of tools to get us there. Part of it is these slichot, these excuse me prayers. Part of it is the period of reflection, a roughly 28 or 29 day period, the month of Elul, just before Rosh Hashanah, where we're supposed to be doing this soul accounting. The prayers that we say on Rosh Hashanah, though that is not the Day of Atonement, are also prayers that are going to really bring us to think about the state of our lives. One of the most powerful prayers, the Unah Tanah Tokef, for instance, is a prayer where we say in the coming year it's going to be determined who will live, who will die, who will become rich, who will become poor, who will be born, who will pass away. And it gets a little bit graphic in who by fire, who by water, who by any of these calamities that happen. And interestingly, I have to note parenthetically that here in the United States right now, we are experiencing in the South Lake Tahoe area, who by fire, the fire is starting to encroach on the community of South Lake Tahoe, and homes have already been destroyed as a result of the fire that's raging. And as we know and are watching our neighbors in Louisiana and Mississippi are struggling with who by water, the floods that have come to Louisiana and Mississippi. Though the levees held in the New Orleans area, there still has been tremendous damage because of water. And I want to point out that one of the things that I'm the most proud of is this artwork by my friend Ross Berman. And I don't know if you can see it here. I can't pick up the computer. It's got a lot of things connected to it. There's some Hebrew language here, and I hope that you're able to see it. Okay, I can see where it is. That is taken directly from the Unah Tanah Tokef prayer. And there's this shape of a crook, or what a shepherd uses to kind of guide his sheep or her sheep. And you can see that in the artwork there's all kinds of little animals. These are all sheep, because there's a point in the Unah Tanah Tokef prayer where we say that we are like sheep passing before the staff of God. And at that moment, God is determining us the length of our lives, the fullness of our lives. And I always interpret that in a metaphorical or a spiritual way. Yes, there's that part of it that is where God is determining, going back to the idea of who will live and who will die. He's determining, when is our end and when will that happen. But I think God is also counting us in the way that an accountant appraises the state of a business. You count all the inventory, you value it up, you look at the debts and liabilities, and you get an understanding of what that business is worth. And I think God is making that same kind of assessment. And it's reminding us in another liturgical way that we have an opportunity to change that assessment, to build out our strengths, to take advantage of our assets. And then the last way that I want to talk about that we do this is through something that is completely non-language. It is completely non-liturgical. It is ancient and primitive, and it is not musical, though it has a musicality to it, because it cannot be ordered or structured the way music can, and that is the blowing of the shofar. And I brought with me this morning my shofar to talk about it, because the sounds of the shofar are supposed to reach us in a way that breaks our hearts open, that brings us to that point where we are at our emotional bottom, where we are saying, I cannot be this way anymore. God, help me change. I don't want this relationship with my father. I want a different one. I don't want to be at this place in my life economically. I am worth more. I don't want to keep beating myself up and being my own worst enemy. I'm sick and tired of it, God. My heart is broken open for you to step in and help me rebuild it. So I'm going to just do a few of the blasts right now. It's one of the things that I just enjoy. It's an incredible honor each year to be able to blow the shofar for the congregation. And I'm going to do it right now, and you can hear what the tones sound like, and and maybe hear what the potential is for these tones to change our way of thinking, to break open our hearts, to help us reduce the old view of ourselves, to break that out away from ourselves, and to open up the possibility that we can hear more, we can see more, we can do more, and in the coming year we can be more. It's a very intense thing to blow shofar. It becomes the centerpiece of the service. Everybody stands up. The shofar blower stands in the middle of the room. And I'm just very moved by thinking about what this means. As I get very moved each year when I do it, I have to say certain blessings ahead of time, and my voice always catches as I think about the intensity and the awesomeness of this moment. And what I think while I'm doing the blasts, in addition to being very mindful to do them to the best of my ability, is that each tone should carry on it my hopes and wishes that everybody who can hear it will have a renewed year, a healthy year, an improved year, a year of growth, a year of happiness, a year of the wealth and riches, spiritually far more than materially, that we all deserve. And for those of you who are Jewish and are coming to this point this year, I hope that your heshbon, haNefesh, your accounting of your soul, has brought you to new understandings and new strength and new growth. And for those of you that are not Jewish, but can take a moment to look at yourselves and think about, what do you want for yourself for this new year? If you renew yourself, what do you want? What can you become? What can you be that you're not yet? And can you take a step this year to get there? Lashana Tova, thank you for watching. I won't be here next week. It will be the first day of Rosh Hashanah, but I will be here again 2 weeks from now. Lashana Tova, and may you all be inscribed for a blessing.